In December 2020, China ceremoniously opened a new bridge. It is almost 16 kilometers long and stretches from the Chinese mainland to Pingtan, a small island in the Taiwan Strait. So far, so unspectacular. After all, China creates mega constructions almost every year, such as the world's longest sea bridge, which connects the cities of Hong Kong and Macau with the mainland over a distance of more than 55 kilometers. However, this project, which completed its first phase in December 2020, is set to be the start of something big that will not only change the region, but the world forever. This is because the Chinese president declared from the outset that the end of the bridge would not be the small island of Pingtan, but Taiwan. Pingtan is now facing a unique opportunity. We should take a big step forward in the integration of China and Taiwan. This is how Xi got the island's officials in the mood for the construction during a visit. Both a bridge and a tunnel are to be completed by 2035 over a length of almost 150 kilometers. Beijing and Taipei are to be connected by high-speed trains, which will allow people to reach Taiwan within an hour and a half. And the plan was officially approved by the government and the Communist Party on March 11, 2021, during the National People's Congress. Without the consent or involvement of Taiwan itself, of course. And this is precisely the crux of the matter. Because the Taiwan issue is probably one of the biggest geopolitical issues of our time, and many see it as the most likely trigger for a major war between China and the USA. Taiwan does not see itself as part of China at all, and presents itself as a complete democratic alternative to Communist China. So what is the true intention behind this gigantic mega-project? What ace does the Chinese government have up its sleeve, and is the start of construction the sign of an imminent war? We take a look at all these exciting questions in today's video. Have fun! The conflict between China and Taiwan dates back to the Chinese Civil War. At that time, the Chinese Communist Party prevailed, and the National Party of China, which had been in power until then under the leadership of the Kuomintang, withdrew to Taiwan. This resulted in two governments, the Republic of China in Taiwan and the People's Republic of China on the mainland. While most states initially regarded the government in Taiwan as the legitimate ruler of the whole of China, this changed dramatically over the next few decades. Today, Taiwan is only recognized by 12 rather insignificant states. Nevertheless, the government continues to be supported by powerful players such as the USA and many European countries. This is because the nationalist regime in Taiwan has changed over the decades into a very democratic one, which is why Taiwan is now at the top of numerous rankings of individual freedoms. In other words, the exact opposite of authoritarian mainland China has emerged there. However, it is clear to Beijing that Taiwan is part of China, and it repeatedly makes it clear that it is striving for unification by any means necessary. And the planned connection to Taiwan is seen as a further step in this takeover. If we disregard the geopolitical problems, the connection to Taiwan makes perfect sense. And so, such a project has already been discussed several times in the past. However, really serious proposals only emerged after the Chinese Communist Party gained control of the Chinese mainland in 1949. From the very beginning, Beijing was intent on gaining control over Taiwan. In the 1990s, as economic and social contacts between Taiwan and the mainland intensified, the proposals actually seemed politically realistic. The improvement in bilateral relations during this period led to increased interest in ways to facilitate travel and trade. But Beijing soon changed course, becoming increasingly aggressive towards its neighbors. In other matters and projects, China has already shown that it generally attaches little importance to the opinions of other players. For years now, Beijing has been creating several artificial islands in the maritime zones of other states, in order to underpin its claim to sovereignty over the South China Sea. This has repeatedly led to diplomatic disputes with neighboring countries such as the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. The same applies to the bridge and tunnel between Hong Kong and the mainland, which was viewed critically by most residents as it was intended to strengthen the Chinese government's power over the special administrative region. As a reminder, Hong Kong was a British Crown colony until 1997, but was eventually returned to China on the condition of one country, two systems. Hong Kong was to be granted extensive autonomy for 50 years, and the legal, economic, and educational systems, as well as the freedoms and rights of its citizens, were guaranteed. However, just 1.5 years after the bridge was completed, the national security law for Hong Kong was passed, which largely overrides the autonomy status and massively restricts citizens' freedoms. We can see the clear strategy of the Communist Party here. First make or first build, and then present all other players with a fait accompli. China knows that this is the best shortcut for many of its international goals, because the strategy is always very successful. Because once something has been built, it is difficult to undo. The bridge and tunnel are to be built as part of the gigantic Beijing-Hong Kong-Taipei corridor. This is because China is rapidly equipping its entire country with state-of-the-art high-speed trains. In 2016, this corridor was announced as part of the national 8 vertical and 8 horizontal high-speed rail network. And the network of several thousand kilometers is now almost complete. Only the connection to Taiwan is still missing. But what exactly is China planning here? In particular, there is always talk of a tunnel that will connect the island with the mainland over a distance of around 130 kilometers. It is very convenient for Beijing that the Taiwan Strait is a relatively seismically stable region. This is quite unique, as the region around it is very susceptible to earthquakes. For example, Japan, the Philippines, or the east coast of Taiwan. Nevertheless, the construction would be an architectural masterpiece. For comparison, the tunnel would be almost 4 times as long as the link between France and the UK in the English Channel, and still 3 times as long as the longest underwater tunnel to date, the Sikan Tunnel in Japan. But China has also shown itself to be very ambitious in the past, and has repeatedly demonstrated that it can realize mega-projects that were thought to be impossible. One potentially tricky aspect of the Chinese engineers' plan, however, is to create 2 artificial islands in the middle of the strait for an air treatment station that would channel fresh air into the tunnel. More artificial islands would probably lead to drastic tensions with Taiwan. Taiwan itself is naturally very concerned about the Chinese plans. Not only would it lose its geographical advantages as an island, but the possible use of the tunnel by China for military operations is also a major concern. This would, of course, be the ideal gateway for an invasion and takeover, similar to what has already been done in Hong Kong. And so, the government in Taipei protested massively against the planned project right from the start. There was no approval from their side for such a project, and it was a new threat from Beijing. For Xi Jinping, the mega-project serves above all as further leverage to force unification on the government in Taipei. It is part of what I call the soft strategy, i.e., resolving the issue in China's interests without the use of military means. This includes numerous measures, such as diplomatic pressure to undermine the worldwide recognition of Taiwan, strong influence on the public and social media in Taiwan through propaganda, repeated massive cyber attacks, and also political influence. However, following the failure of the election interference in January 2024, for example, in which Beijing attempted to bring a China-friendly president to power, it is also making increasingly aggressive military threats. Xi Jinping has also made it clear publicly on several occasions that he will not shy away from military action in order to achieve unification, and he is constantly reinforcing his statements. Chinese fighter jets invade Taiwanese airspace on an almost daily basis, and the maritime borders are also continuously violated. China announced in September 2023 that it now had the capacity to build such a tunnel to Taiwan. Moreover, both sides would long for such a link. This was immediately denied by the government in Taipei, but Beijing still seems to be finding supporters in Taiwan. The Communist Party is thus demonstrating its power with the planned project and further undermining the influence of the Taiwanese government. It remains unclear when construction will officially begin. Beijing is also keeping a tight lid on further plans, and due to the surveillance state, little is leaking out. However, should construction actually go ahead, this would be a clear next step in the escalation of the Taiwan issue,